What he used?
He knocked on them tables.
What he used though? What did he do it with?
A
whip? Oh my gosh, that was terrible.
No. Okay.
Yeah, Jesus goes into the temple, right? The money changers. He's acting a fool, and what does Jesus have in his hand? It's a whip.
As a weapon?
A whip. Yes, it was a weapon. And he breaks the tables. Really? Oh my gosh. Put that on your homework assignment.
Oh my goodness. What did you know what he had in his hand, Cook?
I know he didn't have anything.
That's what I thought he just did like that too. He got mad and flipped them tables over.
Do I have to Google that?
You can't. You should have to. Y'all should know these things. You should know.
Oh goodness gracious. We gotta put this down here too.
I don't be reading y'all about it. Y'all should just go look at the life of Jesus.
Okay.
30 days on the life
When
of
I
Jesus.
saw that, all he did was take the table and throw it up.
You saw it where?
On
On a
I see it
video.
on.
No, I mean as a movie, you know. So
Right,
that's,
right,
you know,
yeah,
that's
that
what they
tells
show.
you right there. Let's go.
When he
We'll do the life of Jesus.
So what
All
did he
right,
have?
let's go. We back. It's 9:45. Y'all do that in your spare time. Let's talk about you think about sermons, application and illustration. So I did a lot of thinking because I was like kind of confused. I'm not gonna lie. Listening to y'all sermons last week or last month, they were good sermons, but I felt like something was missing. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, what is missing? What is missing? And I go back and I'm like, I can't sleep. And I was like, this is bothering me. And I realized what it was when I was putting together my own sermon. It is you all's application and illustration that needs work. Okay. Now I say this with love, but don't get mad. All right, but I'm gonna say it bluntly because it's what it is. That's where y'all need work. So we spent a lot of time working on context, explanation, exegesis, Greek word studies, Bible dictionaries, all that stuff, right? Historical context, type of genre for the passage, which is all well and good. But I don't think we spent as much time on application and illustration. So I take full responsibility for us not having developed that aspect of it as much as we should have over the last 9 months. And then, to top it off, I had you all writing manuscripts, which some of you all were giving me at the last minute, so you didn't get a lot of feedback. But nonetheless, you all were writing manuscripts, and in the manuscripts, I really wasn't giving you all the feedback early enough for you to change. So I didn't really want you to be like stuck on trying to fix your manuscript. But as I was looking back through them, your applications are more vague than they need to be. And your illustrations are less connected than they should. All right? So, what do I mean? If I want, okay, so somebody define for me, what's the point of application?
You said what's the point of it?
Yes.
To apply to it?
Okay, so to apply it to your life, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say put it out there so I mean.
Alright, put it out there.
Yeah.
Alright, so we have a text, right? A text that was written thousands of years ago and written to a different person. Because the Bible's really letters, right? It's a compilation of letters.
Right.
So those letters were written to a specific person. Usually Israelites in the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament, it's to Greeks and an early church. So none of that is what's going on in 2019. So the application part of your sermon is the movement from 2,000 plus years ago to a Greek or a Hebrew to 2019 to 2020, rapidly approaching, Americans, multicultural audience that you face today. Does that make sense? So we need to move that text and the point of that text. We need to move the point of that text here today, so that that point resonates in each of those lives. Now, some scriptures are timeless. John 3:16 says what? Since y'all brought that up earlier.
So love the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in the church will have everlasting life.
Okay, good. So John 3:16 is a perfect example of a timeless scripture. It's not difficult. It's not really challenging. God loves Jesus. God sends Jesus. Jesus dies so that everybody can have a chance at eternal life. Everybody means those people 2,000 years ago. Everybody means those people today. Everybody means those people years from now. Okay. So, let's see.
You said our applications are too vague and our illustrations are what?
Let's connect it.
Let's connect. All right. Let's go. John chapter 5, verse 1. Everybody turn there in your Bibles. John chapter 5, verse 1. Joshua's bringing you food, baby. Alright, so hopefully you've read this story before. Alright, but I'll read it real quick just to bring us up to speed. Now, John chapter 5, verse 1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, there in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethsaida, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water, and whoever stepped in it first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into a pool when the water is stirred up, but while I am coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. And I'm going to pause right there because really, if I go any further, I can preach the next part too, but I just want us to work with this little passage. So John chapter 5, verse 1 through 10. Contextually, right, the passage kind of sets its own stage. We know Jerusalem. We know the Jews had feasts. Right? So if I was thinking about this from an explanation, application, illustration, key words I'm going to talk about here, the feasts. Right? Why were there feasts? What did the Jews do? What kind of feasts were there? There were multiple feasts that the Jews celebrated each year. Right? Now, location, he's in Jerusalem, but not just any place in Jerusalem, the sheep gate, by a specific pool, which in Hebrew is called Bethsaida, right, that had 5 porches. And understand what we're looking at is really like a hospital, right, in that there's lame people, blind people, paralyzed people, and these people aren't like we are today, because they're just waiting for the moving of the water. Alright, so we would have to define that. What is this waiting of the water? What is this thing? And then there's a man there, 38 years, has an infirmity. So, we've set context, we've set background. How do I apply this? How do I apply this passage right here? Because when's the last time you walked into a place and there was, you know, all these people just laying around waiting for some waters to move so that one person, whoever's the fastest, can get in there and then be healed? Where's that happen? Anybody? Anybody heard any stories about that? Me neither. Okay? So this is not a timeless passage in the sense of there's no direct, immediate application. As the minister preaching this passage, I have to move my group, my audience, from here in this story. Does that make sense? It's 2019. How am I going to do that? That's application. Is everybody with me on that? On the need for that. So what does that look like? So let's talk through this piece. Jesus comes. So what is our whole point? What do we think is the key point that we can build this sermon around with this passage?
Healing.
Okay, so healing. Well, what kind of healing?
That's supernatural, but I don't know.
Okay, but let's think. Go ahead. Who's?
No, I was going to ask you, but never mind.
No, go ahead. It's
No,
okay.
I gotta get it together in my head because I'm gonna blurt out something.
Okay. So now think about this. Is there anything today that kind of mirrors it? So we said that there's not a place that we literally walk in and see a whole bunch of blind, lame, paralyzed people, right, laying around waiting for the waters. But is there something that's like that? Where might there be a group of blind, lame, paralyzed people waiting for a change?
Hospital.
Okay, so the hospital, yes. Okay, yes.
The street.
But remember, we're thinking spiritually. So what is the world today? What's the world full of? Blind, lame, paralyzed people. Right? If you don't have Christ, you messed up, huh? If you've not had the light come into your life, are you seeing? If I turn out if we turn out all the lights right now, what we have?
Darkness.
Darkness. So if you live in darkness, can you see?
No.
So what are you?
You're blind.
You're blind. If you don't have full function of your limbs, what are you?
You're lame.
You're lame.
Can't move.
Right? You're paralyzed. Right? If we turn out all the lights and you can't see, will you walk or run as fast as you could? No. So you're going to be paralyzed from moving clearly. But once I provide light to you, what happens? It changes you, right? You become healed as a result that now the blinders have been taken off and you're no longer lame because somebody has spoken into your life and said to you, this is who you're meant to be. This is what you're capable of being. Look into a mirror and see clearly. You no longer, does that make sense to everybody? So from that perspective now, I can begin to move from this picture that we don't ever see in real life to look into the spiritual realm and realize you're surrounded by blind, lame, paralyzed people who are laying there waiting. What are they waiting for?
The light.
They're waiting for the light. And the troubling of the water looks like what though? It looks like light. But is it light? See, they were dependent on this angel coming down, so it would have been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So people are waiting on what? What do they say? If I had more of, my life would be better.
Money.
Money. Right? Isn't that what people say?
Yeah.
If I would just win the lottery,
Be a lot better.
I'd be a lot better. I'd have this. But they don't just say money. They say, if I get this promotion.
Yeah.
Right? And so they say, if I can get this. Think about what people build their lives around. My house and my house payment is predicated upon me working X amount of hours. So I'm paralyzed because I can't do anything else but work these hours. I can't get as much sleep. I can't get as much rest. I can't hang out with my family. It is a problem, an epidemic, they say, the statisticians in America. We don't use our vacation time. Why? Because I can't afford to take vacation, even paid vacation, because I might lose my job while I'm gone. Somebody might take my spot, right? Does that make sense? You begin to see the application. So now I got people understanding that you are paralyzed by your desire to be. So you're the same thing. You're waiting for an increase in money, for a tax return. Maybe you don't have to worry about big houses and cars and boats and stuff like that. No, you're just trying to scrape by, so you're waiting on this tax return. You're waiting for something to come down, something external to you in your situation which currently has you paralyzed. I can't go to school, I can't marry this person, XYZ is wrong, it's all broke. My whole life is broke. And I'm waiting for something external to come be the one. And many of them is just like this person right here. Well, I would, but see, every time somebody beats me. Right? So now it's resonating. Now I'm seeing myself as one of those people who's lame, and who's sick, and who's hurt, and who's paralyzed. And I realize, what's the whole point? That the answer ain't the angel coming down from heaven. Because Jesus comes and he says to him, do you want to be healed? The guy doesn't even recognize that the answer is directly in front of him. How many of you don't recognize that the answer is directly in front of you? You see how we're applying it?
Yeah.
You see how it begins to be applicable? And so then Jesus answers and says to him, rise up, take up your bed and walk. So the answer is what? Jesus. Right? What sets free your paralysis? What sets you free from being lame? What provides the light? Is it money? It's not money. It's Jesus. Right? And Jesus provides perspective. And Jesus provides change. And Jesus isn't a once-in-a-lifetime fall from heaven, stir the waters, and I happen to be the first one there. Now it's applicable. Now you've taken something that came 2,000 years ago, and you brought it all the way to 2019. Is that how you feel? And so that's what we have to do. Does that make sense? And so we take a passage that's not 100% timeless, and we move it via application here to today. And so that's the work. That's the work of teaching. That's the work of training. That's the responsibility that we have as ministers to make what doesn't seem like it makes sense to us and move it and help them to see how this is still as applicable. So now, if our responsibilities, hopefully during prayer, during altar call, is that we're praying for somebody for salvation, right now the stage is set for that. Does that make sense? Right? Because now you've shown me that I'm just like everybody else out there. I'm just like these people here. And look, here's the crazy part about it. When you read on down, it gets into this whole argument about whether or not Jesus is supposed to do it on the Sabbath day and stuff like that. But the good question to leave them with at the end of it is, why didn't nobody else say, hey, I want to be healed? Right? They're all laying there. Lame, paralyzed, broke, hurt, in need of a miracle. They're all waiting on the angel. Jesus shows up in front of everybody, says to some random guy, do you want to be healed? And nobody else said, I want to be healed.
Okay.
There's a problem somewhere.
Yes, it is.
There's a problem somewhere. But that's real context, right? So now what can you do? Now listen, don't push your chance. Jesus didn't ask anybody else, but I'm asking you. Don't sit there and stay the same way. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's application. Does that make sense to everybody? This is how we need to be working towards applying the different aspects of our sermon. Okay, so that's good. So that's application. All right, so keep that in your notes. Let's talk illustration. Illustration. What's illustration? What is an illustration?
Paint a picture.
Okay, so it's a picture.
It could be showing of a movie or a skit or
All right, so who has one of their sermon evaluation rubrics? Look at your notes. Hopefully, somewhere you have one of the sermon evaluation rubrics. Nope, I don't. I have one. They're handed out way back in the beginning. I mean, you may have filled out one, so you might not have one if you don't. I think it was like month 3 that we first handed them out. You can just hold it. Okay. All right. So look down at point 1. Everybody got it? Miss Sister Sally, you got it?
Yep, mine back in the back. I think
Okay.
I can get it out.
So look down at point 1 where it says illustration. What does it say there in parentheses?
Connects the sermon in a memorable way to the audience's memory.
Connects the sermon in a memorable way to the audience's memory. Okay? Connects the sermon in a memorable way to the audience's memory. So, you have to remember that people don't remember stuff that's boring. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. Like, people don't remember stuff that's boring. If you speak in monotone, they're not going to remember. They're going to tune you out. Right? But if you don't give them a picture, how are they going to remember it? So Jesus gives a picture, right? Jesus is a master storyteller. And Again, y'all should do like 30 days of Jesus' life for real. Just like look at it. Because I mean, the dude's a master storyteller. But Jesus gives a story about a farmer who plants some seeds on the wayside. Right? Or, sorry, who's planting seed. A farmer who's casting seed. And some of the seed falls on rocky ground. Some of the seed falls on thin soil. And some of the seed falls on good soil. Right? And then he talks about what that seed is like. So he starts with his illustration and uses it to turn it into application, excuse me. But at the end of the day, what our illustration has to be the connection point. Okay? Does that make sense? So what are some things that we can utilize as good illustrations? Alright, so I'll give you one. Movies. Right? Movies are full of quotes. Movies are pictures. Right? They're full of words. You can do movie clips. Pastor uses movie clips. Y'all remember the one he used with the guy who's on the guy's back? Right? And he's crawling the goal line. He blindfolds him. And he's like, keep going. Just keep going. Just you give me everything you got. You promised me. You promised me you give me everything. And he crawls 100 yards with the guy on his back. Right? What's the point? The point is you can do more than you think. What do you remember? That you were all that carrying that guy. So there's plenty of stuff out there. Movies. Movie quotes, movie clips, movie scenes. What else? Gave you that one? What else? What's some other illustrations? What's some other things that you can draw illustrations from?
Songs.
Songs, yes. Songs. Right? A song can help set the context of your whole story. So, I preached a sermon on where does your help come from? Open up with a song. My help. Brooklyn Tabernacle. Right? I preached a song on the storm a long time ago. This is 2005. The guy told me that's the best sermon I ever heard because of the song that was attached to the sermon. Hey, whatever keeps it memorable. Whatever keeps it memorable. Whatever keeps that seed planted in your heart. Whatever causes it to come up in the midst of people remember something. Pastor likes to quote Michael Jackson, The Temptations, or whoever. He used to be a DJ. He's got a whole thing of music that he can pull. So it's not like I get spiritual and all of a sudden the lyrics aren't applicable or can't illustrate the point that I want to make. Does that make sense? Right. Okay, what else? What's some other things that people can use for illustration?
You're right.
Personal experiences. Exactly. Personal experiences. Now, again, I have to be careful with personal experiences. For two reasons. Number one, I can get caught up. Let me tell y'all about what the Lord done for me. The Lord, yes, to save me. When I was knee-deep to a grasshopper, stuck in the miry clay.
Okay.
But it wasn't just one time. It was 2 times and a third. Turned around and did it a 4th and a 5th time. I'm going to tell y'all for the next 20 minutes about how the Lord done saved me and forget all about my point. So it's real easy to get caught up. But number two, your audience might not identify with your personal experience. Just go keep in mind it. If the people in your audience haven't been through what you've been through, then you're not going to connect. They'll be like, dang, you had a hard life. I want to follow Jesus. You said he was with you in that. Now I'll pass. So we have to be careful about letting our personal experiences get too far. But our personal experiences can be helpful because they are an opportunity for us to testify and show that God is with us. And that's not to say that I should only tell good things that God has done. Because I'll say plenty of times, I'm in the midst of this. I'm learning this as I go. But just remember to use that as an illustration of a specific point and then get on. Okay, what else? What are some other ways that you can, what are some other things that can be illustrations?
Like a prop, like like you did with the ladder, when you were climbing up the ladder.
There you go. Props. That's right. A visual representation, something that they look at. People do it like I did, where you bring something out, right? It can be something that you put in somebody's hands. I think sometimes we get like, I won't say scared to have the people do stuff in church. Like, you can have them do stuff. You can have them fold a piece of paper in the shape of a cross. So now it reminds them. You know what I'm saying? You have them write something. You do a little basic word on it. I ain't saying get some scissors out and start snipping everything. Hey, pass the glue around the aisle now. Pass the glue one way and the offering the other way. Hallelujah. Right? But there's nothing wrong with having, hey, draw a cross, draw a clock, draw something, right? That if it's an illustration. Some of y'all ain't never seen the sundial. We talking about a man who God turned back time. Some of y'all, the man of God was told to strike the arrow in the ground. I just want you to take your pen and just start poking dots on your paper until you see your life. Just saying. It's an illustration, right? It's designed to make a point. That's right. Hit the table until your life changes. Hallelujah. So we can use props. Okay, but we have to be careful about going too far with those. What else? What's some other things we can use for illustrations? Sister Yolanda loves to say imagine. I don't know if she says it in real life, but she says it in her papers. Imagine, yep. Imagination. Imagine with me, if you will. Close your eyes. But just remember, tell people to close their eyes, they might go to sleep. Might not open them back up again. And also, it's kind of similar to personal experiences. The way you see something with your imagination and try to describe may not be the way they just see it. It's like me and you read a book. I remember I read a book. Well, I read a lot of books, but I was reading one book and then I went and watched the movie. And when I watched the movie, I was like, that is not the way I saw that person. Not expect them to look like that at all. Right? Even the way on the radio. You hear somebody's voice, and then you see him in real life, and you're like, whoa, did not line up with how I thought that was going to be. All right, so we have to be careful about imagination. Anything else that we can use for illustration? Y'all done missed a big one.
How about the pictures you use, but not the props, but like when you use on the screen, the pictures.
Okay, yeah, pictures, clip art.
That's it. That's the word.
But any kind of pictures, clip art, PowerPoint, stuff like that. Okay, that's good. What else? What about biblical stories?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, no, it's
Why didn't you say it? Nah, see, I said y'all missing the big one. Biblical stories. And I'll be honest, at the end of the day, this is my favorite one. Because it just restores, it's just faith, it's just showing that God already thought about it. That your situation is not unique, you're not the first one to go through it. And hopefully it makes them be more intrigued to turn where. Because see, as soon as I introduce this to you, let's say I'm using the scene from The Matrix. Talking about Neo's the one, right? And the search that Morpheus goes on to find the one. Everything Morpheus did was to find the one. His whole life was about finding the one. He went in the dangerous places to find the one. He wasn't afraid to say, this is the one. When it didn't look like Neo was the one, he said, you're the one. When no one else believed Neo was the one, he said, you're the one. Right? So I might be, what are you thinking about? Man, The Matrix is a really good movie. Yeah, I'm about to go home and watch that. So while you might be sitting there like, yeah, man, Christ is the one. Man, I should search for him like Morpheus. You're probably like, man, this is really good. This movie is really good. In fact, I watched number 1, now I gotta watch number 2, now I'm gonna watch number 3. What if I can direct you back to the Word? If I can show you how the Son of God just kept intervening on behalf. If I can show you how Abraham was promised this, and because he was faithful, God gave him this. Enough to intrigue you to be like, let me go look at some more Abraham story. Dang, he had that. Darn, he had all that. Wow. Right? Not just bettered you because of it. I just instilled both in the scripture, in the moment when we were in church, but also now sent you back to the well over and over and over again, which means less time that you're spending listening to something. Does that make sense? So that's why for me, my personal preferred is biblical stories. I love Bible stories. I think that no matter what you're preaching, there's a Bible story that references it, that will illustrate it, excuse me, and that you should definitely use if you can. Okay. What else? Anything else? Any other illustration ways? Okay. All right. So now we're going to put to use what we just learned. Woo woo! Everybody excited? That's what I'm about. Just keep it 100, dog. Keep it 100. Okay. So here we go. Perfect timing, Sister Shayla. We're about to apply what we just learned.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, so everybody, go ahead and turn in your Bibles to Mark chapter 6. We're going to do 1.5-minute sermons. 1.5-minute sermons. All right. Everybody's going to get 10 minutes to prepare. You're going to all have the same passage. All right. 10 minutes to prepare. A 5-minute sermon. 1 point. Introduction. Context. Explanation, application, illustration, conclusion.
In 1 minute?
In 5 minutes. 5-minute sermon. 1 point. That's all you need. Okay? Your passage is Mark chapter 6. Verses 45 through 52. I will read it. Mark chapter 6, verses 45 through 52. Once I finish reading, the time will begin. You have 10 minutes to prepare your 5-minute, 1-point sermon. Okay? Get my stopwatch ready. My timer.
We start now, you gonna read it first.
I'm going to read it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Mark chapter 6, verse 45 through 52. Immediately, he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side to Bethsaida, while he sent the multitude away. And when he had sent them away, he departed to the mountain to pray. And when the evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Then he saw them straining at rowing, for the wind was against them. Now about the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea, and would have passed them by. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost, and cried out. For they all saw him and were troubled. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid. Then he went up into the boat to them, and the wind ceased, and they were greatly amazed in themselves beyond measure and marveled. For they had not understood about the loaves, because their hearts was hardened. And begin. 10 minutes. 1 sermon. 1 point. 5 minutes long. So excited.